Holy smokes, the Supreme Court chamber turned into a battlefield the moment Chief Justice John Roberts slammed his gavel down, his face red, as a fire truck Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, that fearless dynamo from Texas, stood tall at the lectern, her eyes locked on like a hawk. She wasn't budging, not an inch. This wasn't some dusty legal debate. This was a full-on clash of titans, old-school Washington versus the bold new wave ready to shake. Things up, buckle up, folks, because what happened next in that hallowed hall is the kind of story they'll write books about, a showdown that could change America forever. If you're not hooked yet, smash that subscribe button, because moments like this don't come around. Often we're diving into raw power, brutal truth, and a fight that'll redefine justice in this country. Picture this: a chilly autumn morning in Washington, D.C., the kind where your breath hangs in the air. The Supreme Court building, that massive marble giant on Capitol Hill, stood like a fortress, its columns daring anyone to challenge the power within, but challenge it. Inside those walls, the air was thick, heavier than a summer thunderstorm. Reporters packed the gallery, scribbling like mad, their phones buzzing with live updates. Legal hotshots from both sides, progressives in sharp suits, conservatives with grim faces, sat glued to their seats at the heart of all two giants, ready to rumble Chief Justice John Roberts, the silver-haired veteran, steering the court for nearly 2 decades, and Jasmine Crockett, the 42-year-old firebrand congresswoman who's taken Congress by storm. Roberts, at 69, looked every bit the seasoned judge, his black robes draped over him like a king, his glasses perched as he stared down from the bench. He's the guy who's always preached the court as neutral, like umpires calling balls and strikes, no bias. But lately the heat was on protests outside his house, approval ratings in the gutter, everyone from left-wing activists to right-wing pundits tearing into him. He was fighting to keep the court above the political mudslinging that had swallowed D.C., and this case, it was his worst nightmare. The case was massive. The Voting Rights Restoration Act sounds boring. Wrong. This was about the heart of American elections, with the feds forced states to make voting easier, automatic registration, more early voting, ditching rules critics called voter suppression. Or it was a federal power grab, trampling states' rights and inviting fraud. Supporters said it was about fixing a system rigged against minorities. The poor, the young opponents, screamed it was tyranny that would wreck election integrity. Either way, this decision would hit every polling place in America, deciding who gets a voice and who gets silenced. Now meet Jasmine Crockett. If Roberts was a calm captain, she was a hurricane ready to flip the ship. Born in St. Louis, daughter of a single mom working 3 jobs to keep food on the table, Crockett fought her way up law school on grit and loans years as a civil rights lawyer battling for the underdog, then boom into Congress just 3 years ago, and she's a star of viral clips of her roasting opponents in hearings, speeches lighting up social media. Donors lining up, young voters love her. She speaks their language on inequality, racism, the rigged game. She's got brains and charisma that make enemies sweat and fans roar. Here's the kicker: Crockett wasn't even supposed to be there. The lead lawyer got sick 2 days before arguments. Congress bigwigs tapped her, betting on her civil rights chops. Conservatives laughed, calling it a stunt, saying she's more activist than lawyer. Progressives, they were thrilled. This was their shot to bring the fight to the justices. Faces of courtroom that day packed. Politicians from both parties, CU Reps, Heritage Foundation, suits, reporters from every outlet outside. Protesters chanted votes for all versus states' rights. Now their signs waving like war banners. The air hummed like the moment before prize fight champ versus challenger. Crockett stepped to the lectern, her burgundy blazer popping against the white marble, her stance screaming confidence. She launched, "In your honors, the Constitution demands we protect every American's right to vote, not just the privilege. This act isn't overreach. It's the 15th Amendment, the Equal Protection Clause, democracy itself." Roberts listened, at first his face calm. But as Crockett dug deeper, weaving stories of real people, voters, waiting hours, polls closing in black neighborhoods, gerrymandered districts, twisting votes, his expression changed. She wasn't sticking to dry law. She was making it personal, political. We can't ignore systemic racism in state laws, she said. These aren't accidents. They're weapons of silence. Voices challenging the powerful. The justices fired questions. As always, Justice Thomas stayed quiet as frown deep. Justice Alito pressed on states' rights. Justice Kagan pushed on federal power. But Roberts, he stewed, fingers tapping. Then came the spark that lit the fuse. Crockett, mid-sentence, dropped a bombshell. Frankly, this court's recent decisions have enabled suppression by hiding behind the fiction that election law can be separated from political power and racial inequality. Whispers swept the gallery. Justices shifted. Roberts, he snapped his hand, shot up, cutting her off like a ref stopping a fight counselor. He barked, "I'm stopping you right there." The room froze. Chief Justices, don't interrupt like that. Not with that razor-sharp tone. Reporters' fingers flew. This was huge. Roberts leaned forward, robes casting shadows. This court won't be lectured about his decisions or integrity by a member of Congress more interested in political speeches than legal arguments. Crockett didn't blink. She gripped the lectern knuckles white. Eyes blazing. Chief Justice Roberts, I believe I have the right to present the constitutional arguments Congress believes are relevant. You have the right to present legal arguments. Roberts shot back, voice rising. You don't have the right to turn this into a political rally or impugn this institution's integrity. The tension, electric silence, except for phone clicks. Justice Alito nodded. Justice Kagan looked uneasy. Crockett took a breath, ready to push. Chief Justice, I respectfully disagree. The Constitution doesn't require me to pretend law exists separate from political and social realities. This court's decisions have been deeply political. That's enough. Roberts cut in anger, flashing her out of line. Congresswoman Crockett, using her title, was a jab, saying she's a politician, not a lawyer, but Crockett cheese. Built for this year's facing bigger bullies in courtrooms, committee rooms. Actually, Chief Justice Roberts, she said, voice gaining power. I'm exactly where I belong, elected by the people to defend their constitutional rights. I have every right to be here. Roberts gripped his chair, face red. Congresswoman, you will address this court with the respect it deserves, or be held in contempt. Contempt for an elected official. Unheard. The room held its breath. Justice Breyer tried to cool things, perhaps a brief recess. Roberts waved it off. No recess. The Congresswoman will continue appropriately, or conclude. All eyes on Crockett. Would she fold, apologize, pivot to safe law talk, or double down? She let go of the lectern, straightened her blazer, stared Roberts down. Chief Justice Roberts, you threaten me with contempt for arguments you disagree with. Let me ask something the American people deserve to know. Roberts' eyes narrowed. Congresswoman, you're walking a fine line. Am I? Crockett fired back. Seems to me you've proven my point about this court's political nature. You interrupted me not because my arguments were